what you're
Yeah.
saying, what I'm hearing, is that Arnold Schwarzenegger is the sexiest final girl of all time.
Hello, people again. Welcome to the Fine Cook podcast. Today we have Hayden, same as before, and our guest this week is Elliott. How are you doing, Elliott?
I'm okay, man. How are you guys doing?
I'm surviving, but that
Yeah.
might be it. That might be in poor taste, so we better leave that out. How are you doing, Jeff?
Same to be honest. Just nothing much to do except record podcasts and yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
So today we've got a few stories. We are going to start talking about slashers, but for starters, we need to discuss Christopher Plummer, who recently passed away about 2 days ago, I believe, as of this recording. So what do you guys think to his overall career? Because he had a massive impact, didn't he, on the film industry? 7 decades of acting. What do we think?
Anybody who's working for that amount of time is going to mean different things to different generations.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I mainly knew Christopher Plummer for his later work more than his earlier stuff. Obviously, I knew about The Sound of Music and stuff like that, but like he was in The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, wasn't he?
Yes.
Yes. And All the Money in the World, which I saw a few years ago, he was brilliant in that. Absolutely brilliant. He replaced Kevin Spacey after all the allegations came out about Kevin Spacey. You know that what happened with him and stuff. And like they reshot the entire film in like I think it was like 2 weeks or something. I can't remember exactly the amount. And it looked like he was like meant to be there from the start, which is absolutely incredible. Like he was perfect for that role to start with.
Oscar nominated as well.
Yeah,
Not bad.
Absolutely. No, like if you like didn't read up about the story, you would have like no idea that he wasn't originally meant for the role.
Also knew him from Star Trek 6. He
He
was
on Star Trek. Yeah,
General Chang. So
yeah,
big ups to him on that.
Yeah, I can't remember. That's the even ones. The even ones are good ones, basically.
Yeah.
So he had the ones. Obviously, he's got The Sound of Music, which is considered a classic, and that he was great in that as well. He's just overall had a great career, hasn't he?
Yeah, he also did some great indie films. He did a great indie film called Beginners, with Ewan McGregor and Melanie Laurent. That if you haven't seen that film, I suggest checking it out because it's a really nice little film that he was in.
Yeah, definitely. So it's sad he's gone. He was 91, I believe, wasn't he? So he's pretty old. It's incredible that he was like, I watched him in Knives Out, which came out, what was that, like 2 years ago, something like that? Was it 2019 or 2018? I can't remember.
It was the end
great.
of 2018.
Okay. Right. He was great in that. Like, considering his age, he was, fantastic in it. It says a lot, about somebody's talent when they can act at that kind of age.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, it reminds me a lot of Christopher Lee's career, really.
He died back in 2015, didn't he?
Yeah.
Also in news, bit of a Zoom call drama.
Oh, we're having one right now. So
what?
This could end up getting leaked and, could become a comedy classic, I guess.
You have no authority here, Hayden White. No authority at all.
I mean, it's a funny meeting, like, but you've also got to think these are the people we vote for. This is in the UK, so this is what we vote for, basically.
Mental. Apparently,
no, sorry, Jeff, go on.
oh no, good. Yeah, you.
No, sorry, Jeff, go on.
No, you go on.
No, I was saying to you yesterday, Jeff. Well, we were talking on Facebook and stuff, and I was saying somebody's like going to write a comedy after seeing that. Somebody's bound to write a comedy.
Feels like the Vicar of Dibley.
Yeah. I'm guessing it would be like the Office kind of scenario, like it'd be like Office people or something like that. I could imagine that working.
They really should do that. They really should.
Yeah.
Jeff, you have no authority here, Jethro, Randell.
Read the standing orders.
Read them.
But
that little shot she does at the end as well.
Or that lady who's just like randomly on a call, like, I'm on a meeting. That's all you get. She's just like, I'm on a meeting. I'll call you back. Yeah, and I swear my Zoom calls are just like 10 minutes of like, oh no, I'm on a meeting. Oh no, you're on mute. Oh, concert. Oh, blah blah blah. It's just all that, isn't it? Yeah.
I've never seen such a like men act like such like primary school kids in my life. You know what I mean? You know, it's like it would be interesting to see like a Zoom comedy because we've had horror takes on it and like more dramatic takes on it. Like I watched Unfriended yesterday just to like refresh my mind on the idea. I see a lot of negative reviews on it. I didn't think it was that bad. It wasn't spectacular or anything like that, but it set out to what it was meant to do, kind of. I think it's going to be more impactful on younger people, though, that use Skype all the time. Like, we're in our 20s, so we're a bit more senior, I guess, in that regard. But
practically on our pension.
Yeah, but
get furlough.
Yeah, there's another film that a lot of people don't know about as well called Searching. Has anybody seen that film?
Is that the film with I forget his name.
John Cho.
That's it, yeah.
Yeah, John Cho. That's a really good film and a really good way of doing it. A really good way.
I need to check that out.
Yeah, it's pretty good. It's pretty good.
I don't watch a lot of found footage films, really. Like, I've got a few that I keep going back to, like Troll Hunter.
Oh, yeah.
Excellent, like, Norwegian film. The original Cloverfield as well is always a good time.
Yeah. Yeah, they've kind of gone away from that a bit, haven't they, found footage, I think?
Yeah, there was a big boom of them, like in the early 2010s, early to mid-2010s, but I haven't seen too many over the last few years.
Yeah, I think Paranormal Activity kind of gave it some new life, didn't it?
Yeah.
The whole found footage horror thing. Although there was the Blair Witch Project before that.
Yeah, the first like capital F found footage movie. Yeah.
Yeah, unless you count Cannibal Holocaust, I guess, which we talked about last episode.
Before Cannibal Holocaust, there was The Legend of Boggy Creek. The film before Cannibal Holocaust I was talking about was The Legend of Boggy Creek, made in 1972. The mockumentary horror film about it's like a Bigfoot type creature.
Must be some before that, surely.
I mean, I did get most of that in, Jeff. I think it was just you.
Yeah, I just asked you to do that because of the recording, and yeah. Sorry about that. Yeah, like, would you classify Paranormal Activity as a slasher film?
No.
Okay.
No, definitely not.
So, what would you say? Like, this is a slasher film. This isn't. What boxes would you guys say that the film has to tick to be classed as a slasher film?
Well, you need to go back to what originally started it, which a lot of people are going to say is the Texas Chainsaw Massacre or even Black Christmas. But there's the Italian films before that, which some people don't really know about. The is it Gallo films? They're called
Gallo films,
Gallo. Yeah. Yeah, you've got Blood and Black Lace, haven't you? That was
Yeah,
the
A
first
Bay
known
of Blood.
one.
Well, ones like Bird with the Crystal Plumage.
Yeah, Blood and Black Lace is, well, it's where the elements kind of started. I guess it's more of a mystery kind of film to
Yeah,
start with, but it kind of introduces those elements, like you got a mass killer. The people he kills are fashion models, so you've got the pretty young woman trope in there, and there's a body count. So those are the main elements that were introduced to start with.
yeah. The thing with defining the slasher genre is because of the weight of film history, it's quite tricky to. There's definitely different categories. Like if you go for a more inclusive list, then we're starting to talk about these giallo films, and we're starting to talk about films like Psycho and Peeping Tom that brought in the POV heavy serial killer motif. But I think when most people are talking about the slasher genre, they are referring to a slew of horror films made between 1978 to 1984, which portray a group of adolescents in a suburban space who are stalked and killed one by one, often by a masked killer, and defeated by a lone female survivor.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I have seen some arguments out there about that Psycho was the first slasher film. Well, first to introduce it because Psycho came out before Gallo, didn't it? It was 1960, wasn't it? That Psycho came out.
Giallo as a film subgenre kind of kicked off in '64 with Blood and Black Lace.
Yeah, yeah. So I guess you could say that there isn't as much of a body count in Psycho, really. I don't know. It's a tough one to answer where it originally came from.
Yeah, well, for me personally, like all of these, like the giallo films, Psycho, Peeping Tom, and even films like Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Black Christmas are, I guess, what you might call the proto-slasher. So these are all the films that happened before the tropes were really solidified by a film like Halloween.
Yeah. A lot of people say that Halloween was the first film to like establish all these tropes.
Yeah, I think by virtue of a single film that has like all the tropes that we typically associate with the slasher film, Halloween was the first to synthesize all of those, whether it be intentionally or otherwise.
Yeah. So, what's our favorite slasher film? What do we think? What's our favorite? What do we think does slasher the best, the most justice?
Do you want to go first?
Man, this is a tough one.
Yeah.
I would have to say Halloween. Like it was the first to do it, but I still think I don't know. I think it did it. I think it was most well executed, and it's come on to be a cult classic. And John Carpenter's now became a major director, didn't he, from Halloween, as well as Jamie Lee Curtis. I know she had her mum, who was famous before that, but for her to become a star, it was Halloween. And yeah, it's still quite a chilling film to watch, I think. Like the music is just the soundtrack's just perfect. Like John Carpenter composed it himself, didn't he? Most of it, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I believe he used to like do tours, didn't he, for it? I believe. Yeah, I feel Halloween did it the best, in my opinion. You know, in terms of like there's like Michael Myers is basically like the boogeyman, if you think about it. Like he is pretty much, you know, if people talk about, you know, who's the biggest slasher boogeyman, I'd have to say Michael Myers. Like, you know, when he has those scenes where he like appears and then disappears, and it just creates so much suspense and tension. And when he kills, you know, these people, it's, you know, it's really chilling.
Yeah.
How tall is he? He's like 7 foot tall. It's just
No,
intimidating.
that's not really Michael Myers. I think he was deliberately taller than the actors in the film, but I don't believe he was that tall.
Oh,
I think
okay.
you're thinking more Jason Voorhees. Oh no, well actually you might be thinking the remake more. You might be thinking more the remake because
Yeah.
that had what's his name in it? Tyler. I can't remember his name, the actor's name, but he played Sabretooth in X-Men. And he was about, I think he's like 6'9" or something like that. So maybe you're thinking about that, Jeff.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
But still, like, intimidating figure and the
Yeah, absolutely.
mask. Would
Yeah.
argue difference between Myers and Voorhees. You you never see him like what's under the mask in
Yeah.
Halloween. With Friday the 13th, he's technically the killer from the second one, isn't he? But you still see him without the mask in the first, don't you? So that
Yeah.
kind of like there's a bit less mystique there.
Yeah, and the mask is a white painted William Shatner mask, which is pretty cool.
You can't see his
Yeah.
eyes at all.
Yeah,
Eyes are just.
that's a good point.
And the way that Michael Myers moves in the first Halloween film is very kind of ghostly or almost robotic. Like there's the classic iconic shot now where Jamie Lee Curtis is kind of cowering in the corner, and then behind her, Michael Myers moves up in this kind of slow fashion in one move, and then he twists his head around in a second separate move that makes him so much more otherworldly to look at as a slasher bird.
Yeah, like I think this is what was ruined in like the later films. Like he's kind of human, but he's not at the same time. Like he's otherworldly, but like he's in like a human form. And I think the later films kind of screwed it up by making him I think it's in the fourth one where he gets like a shotgun, but instead of like shooting the guy, like shoves it up his stomach or something like that. Or was that Friday the 13th? I can't remember.
I haven't seen all the Halloween sequels.
Bit fuzzy personally. That sounds more like a Voorhees thing than Myers.
Yeah, well, there are a few moments where he's just like in the later films, he was like they had got an actor that was built like an American football player, and I just thought like that just ruins it a bit, just making him like this massive, powerful guy.
There
Like
was
it takes away a bit of mystique.
There was a scene in the original Halloween that I thought was absolutely brilliant. It's where Laurie was there just hiding and panicking, and there's some darkness in the distance and in the background. But Myers is there, but you don't see it because it's all black. But a light is, I'm not sure if it's dimmed or if it was totally uncovered, so that a light shining on Myers became ever so brighter. Like very, very, very subtle, but it's meant to simulate your eyes getting used to the dark and then seeing things more. And oh yeah, really got the chills from that. It's using your own like about the dark, but then seeing things, you're like, yeah,
Yeah,
pretty good at that.
yeah. Do we think the new Halloween film does the Halloween franchise justice? Obviously,
I really liked the new one.
yeah, I mean we have touched on it before, but I want to go in more into depth with it. But yeah, I really liked it. I thought it did it justice. It kept a lot of what made the original great. But they also did some I think some of it's not exactly fresh but giving Laurie much more of an offensive role, I guess, in the film.
Yeah, I think the best thing that film could possibly do was challenge new themes, and having it be this direct sequel to the original that's set 40 years later, really having this sense of generational trauma running through it, and taking Laurie Strode's character to the logical conclusion after those kinds of events is where I think the film breathes the most.
Yeah, absolutely. What's your take on it, Jeff?
Yeah, like the kill count was significantly higher. I feel the one weakness is that we saw a bit more of like Myers' face. It was just like it was in the scene in the was it the mental hospital, and he's standing outside. You see him from behind. Even that, just seeing him without the mask, it didn't really, and sort of took a while before it got into to him killing. But I feel the scenes with him in it succeeded in being an homage. It succeeded in updating some of the tropes of before, and yeah, I feel that the slasher film has a new life, a new lease of life. Just looking forward to the sequel. Sort of using the tropes of he dies at the end, but always comes back in the next film.
Yeah, I just hope they don't ruin it in the sequels. That's the only thing I'm concerned about with that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like there was H2O and then they made Resurrection. I'm just like, come on. Like, you made H2O to be like the send-off. Like, you rewrote the films in that film just so you could like give it a good send-off, and then you make another sequel. And that film has a massive plot hole as well. Like, it's after the second Halloween film, isn't it? Halloween H2O. And like, how did he survive the fire? How did he like survive getting like blown up? And why has he not like got scars all over him and stuff?
Was there something similar in Halloween 2, 1981 version?
What do you mean, Jeff?
Didn't he get blown up in that?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, H2O takes place after the second Halloween film. And like, it would make more sense if it was after the first one, but it was after the second one, I believe. So yeah, I'm glad they like wrote it. I'm glad they wrote this Halloween after the first Halloween storyline instead of the second one, because it made more sense. So talking about other slasher films, Friday the 13th is probably next, isn't it? When it comes to slasher films,
Definitely up there, isn't it?
Friday
Yeah,
absolutely. Was the conscious effort to, I think, the first major conscious effort to take what Halloween had done and take those things further. It's like, absolutely. So the thing about Halloween is the success of it shocked a lot of people.
In what way?
Yeah.
No, there was an idea that you had to make certain types of films throughout the 70s that would appeal, more family-friendly movies that would appeal to wider audiences. And Halloween came along and said, you can do this and audiences want to see this. And so now there was a very new type of film that you could market to people who are our age. And guys like Sean S. Cunningham and Victor Miller, who wrote the original screenplay, did absolutely model the film on Halloween. You know, because Victor Miller has spoken. I don't know if you guys have ever seen interviews with Victor Miller, but when he talks about how he approached the screenplay, he talks very much about watching Halloween and what he learned from that. And what he talks about are a lot of these tropes that we now associate with the slasher film. So he talks very much about, you have to start the film off with a prior evil, which we see in both Halloween and Friday the 13th. We have that, POV sequence at the start of the film where the killer kills the two teenagers who are fooling around. There's got to be a lack of adults or parents in the film, and you have to have a group of particularly clean-cut adolescents that are one. And the direct quote is quite interesting. Is he said, "The other thing I learned from Halloween is that if you make people get killed."
Yeah.
Isn't there a difference between the being out in the woods settings versus the domestic settings of Halloween? Like, doesn't the setting have?
There is a difference, but the thing about the Camp Crystal Lake is I think it's very clear that the teenagers going there are from that suburban in the first place.
Yeah.
Certain clean cutness and wholesomeness, because you've got the babysitters in Halloween, they're very well respected teenagers in their community, and now you've got these camp counselors who are supposed to be working with and for kids. So there is this kind of like homely, kind of almost suburban-esque feel to it, even if it is not aesthetically a suburban location in and of itself.
Yeah,
middle class as well. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, that's a very good way of looking at it, because a lot of the time you kind of see the audience cheering on the villain, well, the killer in this case, rather than the people that are getting slaughtered on screen. So, Jeff, you were going to say something.
Oh, yeah. Would you also say that they're middle class as well? Like those who go to Crystal Lake, or those who get killed in Halloween, or other slashers as well.
Yeah, these kids tend to be more of the middle class economic scale. Because the other thing to remember about a lot of these slasher films is they were made during the Reagan era.
Now, could you explain more about what that means, please?
Yeah, okay, let's go into this. So the thing about horror films to talk about the most, and the reason that I'm so interested in even the slasher film, which by a lot of people is considered like a nastier and more exploitative part of the horror genre, it's sort of seen like the red-headed stepchild of the horror genre, which I think is somewhat unfair. I like a lot of these films. Most of these films were made during the Reagan era, where there was a considerable move back to a bygone era, return to this like more patriotic, nostalgia-driven kind of society that, because we were coming off the back of stuff like the Vietnam War and various liberation movements like civil rights and all this kind of stuff. And the thing that the horror genre has always been consistently very good at is taking what's going on socially and culturally and using these films to critique or reflect it in some way. Like, we go back through history and we can always see that different movie monsters are used as an approach, as a critique of what's going on at the time. So if you go back to German Expressionism, and you watch Nosferatu, you see the vampire encoded as being like the Jew, and then you move into the 1950s and like invasion narrative movies like Thing from Another World, Invasion of the Body Snatchers, and now these films are about, the fear of Soviet aggression, about Cold War tensions, about expecting to conform to authority, and so all these monsters are used as different avatars. The thing about the slasher is it's the most human avatar of all. It's the least like inherently monstrous on an aesthetic level. So now all the people doing the killing are other people.
And
so
right.
In the 80s. Yes. Sorry, what were you saying, Hayden?
No, sorry. I understand where you're coming from, because Psycho was the first film. Well, I don't know if it was actually the first film, but it was one of the most significant films that introduced the whole idea of humans killing other humans. Is that right, Elliott?
Yeah, it was not necessarily the first. I think there were a few before, like House of Wax, for example.
Yeah.
But certainly Psycho was the first one to really bring in that killer's POV thing into horror cinema that had not been seen on that scale before.
Yeah.
It was the first one to show a toilet.
Yeah, sexy.
Yeah, not that has anything to do with slasher films, but a bit of film trivia there.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's also like preying on the fact that it's about humans fearing humans now rather than fearing monsters, isn't it? Because of all the because the Vietnam War and the wars before that.
Domestic terrorism as well.
Yeah,
Because the 90s, you also had like the Oklahoma City bombings, the Unabomber, the Columbine, yeah. What was the bombing underneath the World Trade Center?
There was the first bombing in like '93.
Yeah. And then you've got 9/11, which seems to eclipse all that. Even though there wasn't domestic, it was still an attack at home, which really seemed to scare a lot of people. Being attacked when you're not expecting it.
Yeah. Well, like the thing I'm trying to say about slasher films as a response to the Reagan era is I'm not saying that every single one is directly a critique, because the thing to remember is there were like 200 of these films made just in the 80s alone. And I think, a good amount of those were somewhat cynically made cash grabs to, get money off making films like Halloween and Friday the 13th. But definitely some of these films do have something to say about the era that they were set. And certainly a lot of horror films in the 80s outside of the slasher film did. They Live was described as the most anti-Reagan film to come out of Hollywood. In Poltergeist, the main, the father in that film works for these real estate developers who are making identical houses. These films were critiques and conformity, and the whole big twist of Poltergeist is at the end, and I think reflective of the Reagan administration as a whole, is, they didn't move the bodies, they only moved the headstones. Like, Reagan did not move you into a better time. He moved you into an older time where those older problems that existed before the Vietnam War and all this kind of stuff will inevitably resurface.
Yeah.
I like that. What about... sorry.
Yeah, it's just like, it's incredible how like horror has moved on. Like, it's like, if you look at every decade, there's like a different kind of topic. Would you say you've got monsters in the 30s and 40s? You got slashers starting from the 70s to the 80s, maybe through to the 90s. Then you've got more spiritual stuff coming in towards the late 2000s, early 2010s.
Yeah, there's also there's also the matter of zombie films cropping up every here and there. It's really accepted now that Night of the Living Dead is considered an allegory for the civil rights movement, even though Romero claims not to have intended for that. But then you watch Dawn of the Dead, and it's very clearly also a film about consumerism and late capitalism. So,
yeah. What about the killers? How they're portrayed? Because Myers and Voorhees, they're seen more as he was a troubled lad when he was young. Like Myers, the literal opening scene is him killing his sister. But he never really grew up from that. You had like Voorhees, who, well, in the first one, it was his mother who was the killer, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Unless I'm remote. No, yeah, she was. But then afterwards, he was there, sort of taking up the mantle, and yeah, isn't there a sort of, oh yeah, the person is a bit odd, so this person had a rough childhood, so therefore that's making them like go off and do all this killing and that, as opposed to someone who is more well-rounded, more in a upper place in society. Like, say, American Psycho, someone like Patrick Bateman. Like, no one will look at him and think, oh yeah, he's a weirdo. I mean, you would from his voiceover, but people just on the street, you wouldn't look at him and think, oh yeah, he's a killer. But if you look at someone who is seen as a social outcast, you might think, yeah.
Yeah, the thing is, I'm not sure. We don't really see Michael Myers' life before he kills his sister, do we
No,
really?
suggested in the film that Michael Myers did it because he is, pure evil. He is the boogeyman.
Yeah.
Still be that even as a kid.
Yeah.
So you don't really get the backstory. I mean, Rob Zombie went in on the backstory angle, which I honestly don't mind, because I think if you are going to reimagine an older film, you might as well just do something different with it regardless.
Yeah. Yeah. Going to the Rob Zombie film, I don't mind it, but at the same time, it kind of ruined a bit of mystique for Michael. Like, you give him all this backstory, it's just like, oh well, you've given him like character development to develop into this, pure evil figure. Whereas in the original film, it's kind of a mystery. You kind of just, or the only thing you can reference to Michael Myers is that he was pure evil. Like in the remake, you could say, oh, he was pure evil, but he also had a rough upbringing and blah blah blah. His mum was a stripper and stuff like that. I think that kind of takes the mystique away. What do you guys think?
Well, for me personally, like I can separate it because while they may be part of the same franchise, they're ultimately very different films on their own right.
Yeah.
I'm not projecting any of what Rob Zombie did when I think of John Carpenter's Halloween films and vice versa. The same with David Gordon Green's new iteration. I'm not necessarily saying, oh, well, now I know what happens in Halloween 2018, so that makes me view the 78 film differently. I can keep them separately, but I can understand why other people would not be able to do that, especially if you're very like you have a real connection to these films or these characters.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seemed a bit like explaining something that you didn't need to, but at the same time, it was shown in a grotesque way, which sort of like there's either two ways to do it. You either imply it or you go full in on it and you make you go, ugh. And going the more explicit route, the killing of the rat, was it? It had that moment of, because you had like a close up of him, like, oh yeah, okay, yeah. And then you look down and it cuts to what he's doing. It's like, whoa. I thought that was very effective, personally. And I feel that the whole connection there, you kind of knew from the beginning that, well, Laurie was there, which again, it wasn't in the original, but it had that sort of precursor to it. Like, I feel the viewing experience is enhanced by watching the previous ones, which, but watching it on its own, it feels lesser in a way. I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I think most people watch the remake because they're fans of the original. Like, personally, obviously, there's going to be that small crowd that just go and watch the remake and have never seen the original. But like moving on to Jason Voorhees as well, which we haven't really discussed yet. Yeah, well, he wasn't introduced till the second film. I feel he's more of a supernatural being than Michael Myers. Like Michael Myers, I think he's kind of human, but he's not at the same time. But Jason Voorhees, he's just he's much more supernatural of a being.
Raising from the literal dead.
Yeah, definitely.
So what do you think to him as a killer or as an antagonist?
he's great. he, he's. I think he. I don't know. He's. I think I don't. Hold on. I need to. Somebody else talk because I need to reconnect my thoughts.
Elliot, we've had Freddy versus Jason. What about Michael versus Jason? Who would win?
Who would win? Oh, well, I don't think I want to see that anyway. I'm not super interested in the slasher crossover thing.
Fair.
Look, Jason's built like a brick shithouse, man, and he's basically a zombie. And like he can crush people's skulls with his bare hands. Like he's fun to watch. So by sheer strength, yes, probably Jason Voorhees would absolutely destroy Michael. But Michael's got a more ethereal quality to him.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking in a way, but I think people will cheer for Jason more than Michael because, as I said earlier, a lot of people seem to cheer for the killer rather than the people getting slaughtered on screen. And I think Jason has more of that connection with audiences than Michael Myers, I think, because, you know, he just does these otherworldly things like crush skulls, as Elliott said, and, you know, do all these brutal killings and stuff. I thought it was more refreshing in, like, a lot of people seem to hate the remake of Friday the 13th, but I thought the way he killed people in that film was much more refreshing compared to, like, the sequels. Like he runs, like, he never used to run in the films, did he? But, like, in the remake, he ran for his victims, which I thought was a breath of fresh air.
Yeah. What about the... Oh, what's it? Freddy Kruger. Also following the stereotype of the physically deformed outsider being the killer. But he was also a nonce, wasn't he?
Okay, so the thing with Freddy Krueger, this is very interesting. So Wes Craven in the original drafts for Nightmare on Elm Street, and by the way, Nightmare on Elm Street is my favorite slasher film. We'll get to that at some point. But Freddy Krueger was intended to be this child molester turned child killer, who was obviously killed by all the parents of Springwood, which is the town in the film. But something that happened during the making of Nightmare on Elm Street was the McMartin preschool trial, the alleged child abuse. So they pulled back on the child molester angle with Freddy Krueger and made him, in the film at least, more a child killer than the other thing. And so the reason that he's deformed is because he was burned alive by all the parents of the Springwood Elm Street kids.
Yeah, I think the nonce angle was more in the remake, wasn't it?
I didn't see the remake. I think they might have doubled down on the nonce angle in the remake, yeah.
yeah, I wasn't a fan of the remake. I didn't think it had any charm to it. It has more dream sequences, but it's just like there's just jump scares and it just felt very lazy to me. I thought Jackie Earle Haley was good as Freddy, though. I wish if they make another remake, like, I think they should keep him as Freddy.
Well, isn't the horror not a lot of it not from what he does or how he kills people, but because you look at him and it's someone who's physically deformed and it's like, ugh, is a lot of horror based on that?
I think we're going more into body horror territory there.
Sort of adjacent in a way, but mainly from the perspective of how scary is the killer, the antagonist, and how much of that is through their actions and how much of that is through their physical appearance.
I think it's the fact that he can violate you in your dreams, that he can get into the most intimate and singular, like insular thing that you can do, which is go to sleep where you are completely alone. The fact that he can come into your dreams and your nightmares and violate you in that, both like mentally and physically at once, I think is a much more terrifying idea than what he looks like, although that is terrifying in and of itself.
Yeah, I think what separates Freddy Krueger from other villains is you could argue that he has much more power over what he does than the other slasher villains. Like, obviously characters can run from them and like, attack them and stuff. Whereas with Freddy Krueger, he's in their dreams. They've got nowhere to go, basically. And it's much more of a psychological effect he has on his victims as well, compared to Jason or Michael.
Yeah.
But I see what you're saying with the whole deformed thing, Jeff, because I think this is more of a topic for like earlier films like Nosferatu, you could argue, because Nosferatu, obviously, if you look at him, he's, got characteristics of somebody that's, what's the word, different, really. Somebody that's different, because like, obviously in Germany, you had people antagonizing people with like deformities and stuff like that. Is that?
Yeah.
That what
the whole eugenics thing.
Yeah, and Nosferatu was kind of a reflection of that, I think.
And exaggerated Jewish features, the whole stereotypical big nose, or they're like a rat. And therefore play more into that and create something that it's like a snake that eats itself. You create media that plays into the stereotypes, and that media reinforces stereotypes, and stereotypes enforce the medium. Just doesn't exist within a vacuum, does it?
Yeah, I mean, you are on something there, because there's also Leatherface, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and he's considered deformed as well, isn't he? Well,
they also like the whole cannibalistic thing.
Yeah,
which is sort of like was the Leatherface was wearing like mask made out of human skin, was it?
Yeah. Legend style icon.
Yeah. So it's just sort of out of human skin. So that's sort of an intersection between body horror from a victim and the deformed or aberrant appearance of the killer. It's in that sort of interwoven bit there.
Yeah, I think you've got a point there, Jeff. Texas Chainsaw Massacre is actually based on a real life killer. Like, I know the original trailer for the film said it was a true story. It's not really a true story. It's based on a real killer, though.
Ed Gein, yeah.
Yeah.
On my podcast, we did an entire episode about Ed Gein and the influence that he's had on horror films, on horror cinema.
Yeah. I guess they took the whole concept of, because Ed Gein used to like wear people's skin and stuff like that, didn't he? And make clothing out of it. And that's what they took from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, wasn't it?
Yeah, like furnishings out of people's skin and their bones. He dug up graves and stole body parts. Yeah, there's all sorts of stuff, all sorts of disgusting stuff that Ed Gein was doing.
Yeah. I mean, looking at Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I mean, I know quite a few people that don't like it now because they think it's very outdated. But, you've got to think back in the day, that was like very shocking for people, wasn't it?
He's trying to get a PG at the time, wasn't he?
Did it try to get a PG?
Yeah, the argument being there was very little blood.
Yeah. Well, I think it was trying to be as real as possible, wasn't it? Like, it does have that kind of like gritty documentary look to it, doesn't it?
Yeah, shot on 16mm film.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it was also slapped with an X rating, which at the time was 2 ratings above PG because it was G, PG, R, X, and it was like, whoa, I'm getting X, I want a PG, and like, just looking at it, why do you get a PG? Well, then again, standards were different there, especially in like American films. You have PGs that are like heads exploding and boobs and things. So, yeah.
Yeah. Obviously, there was Star Wars with the chopped off arm and stuff, and I got a U.
Yeah. But then again, fantasy.
Yeah, that's the whole argument for that one. But yeah, so what do we think to Texas Chainsaw Massacre as a slasher film, which a lot of people have argued it was where it started, but obviously we've already discussed where it started. So what do we think to Texas Chainsaw Massacre?
Well, firstly, Texas Chainsaw Massacre absolutely fucking slaps. So let's get that out of the way. I would put that in with the proto slashers. It's the, one of the precursors to the slasher film, but not the like what we consider embodying all the more rigid tropes of the film. Yeah, if you like slashers, there's no reason for you not to watch Texas Chainsaw Massacre at all. There's no reason not to.
I mean, if you're a massive fan of cinema in general, there's no reason to not watch it. Even though a lot of people say it's like outdated and stuff, I think it still has a significant place in cinema. Like, you've got to think, back in the 70s, this was shocking. Like, this was like a lot of people thought this was like real. Thought it was real, what was happening on screen.
It is an absolutely essential film, whether it be in horror or outside of it, because this came out during the 70s when there was a wave of particularly paranoid American cinema. That was the big thing in American cinema, was these like paranoia films. And Texas Chainsaw Massacre, as much as it is a horror film, also embodies that. Like, I don't see why you wouldn't watch something like Deliverance or even Taxi Driver and then also watch Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I think you would have to watch all of them.
Yeah, and it's also like, if you're a film student as well, it's a great way to learn filmmaking, I think, by watching the film, because a lot of stuff in that film is very low budget, and like the actresses got like their shins bruised and stuff because they constantly had to repeat the same scenes where like the actress falling over on the bones and stuff like that. She got like massively bruised shins and stuff like that.
One of the actors go with chainsaws, like, oh yeah, don't worry, came within like 3 inches of his face. So
wow, I didn't know about that one.
That could have ended up very poorly, but most of the actors absolutely despise the director after filming.
Yeah, that seems to be a case with a lot of them. But yeah, I think it's a great way to teach people about low budget filmmaking, because it's just a prime example of how having a low budget can actually help a film, because it does certainly help the Texas Chainsaw Massacre when it comes to, the gritty kind of low budget feel of it. Like, it almost feels real. I mean, I think the scariest thing about it is that it may not have happened, but it could happen,
And some of it did, technically.
Yeah, well, technically, yeah, absolutely.
We went to a local slaughterhouse and got a load of blood and animal carcasses.
That's just a regular day for you, isn't it, Jeff? So you...
But it was regular for like films at the time, like just getting a load of cow's blood instead of fake blood because it always looked better. Like the famous scene in Alien, that was a load of cow's blood just splattered over. Speaking of which, would you class Alien as a slasher?
I've seen Alien described as like a haunted house movie in space.
Okay, that's interesting.
But would it be in the slasher? Because it's the woman survives. Well, a woman survives because there were 2 women.
Well, I think the thing with the slasher is we have to go back to the human avatar of the monster. And in Alien, this is very much an alien monster. There are definitely there's definitely some crossover with tropes, and there's some crossover with aesthetics, but by and large, I couldn't make the case for Alien being a slasher film. Not in the way that you could. There's an argument for the Terminator as a slasher film in disguise, which is a very compelling argument. I mean, obviously, it's not a slasher, but certainly when the slasher films were at their commercial peak, there's so much structurally and in terms of the tropes that films like The Terminator and Predator do share with a Friday the 13th or a Burning or any of those kinds of films. I mean, it's even got the POV thing of, it's infrared vision is like the POV. There's also that conflation of sex equals death, where he's gone back in time to kill somebody to stop them essentially having sex so that they don't have this child that,
But he also kills the couple, Sarah Connor's roommate and her boyfriend having sex just after.
Yeah, exactly. And the slasher will kill anybody who gets in their way. So even though, he's a cyborg from the future and he's got a more specific motivation for what he's doing, there isn't a whole lot separating him from a Jason Voorhees or a Michael Myers when you actually do a little bit of digging.
Yeah. Going back to Alien, it does have some elements of slasher, but I don't think it has enough there to really prove that it is a slasher. Like, obviously, you've got the tropes like the dumb teenagers. That's not in the film. The crew, I think the crew in Alien were a bit smarter than, the dumb teenager kind of trope.
Yeah, the dumbest thing is...
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do agree with Elliott about the human thing, though. That I think that's also something that's important in slasher. Yeah, I think it's. Yeah, I do agree with Elliott that I think it's more of a haunted house kind of film in space. Yeah, you could say the same thing about Predator, I guess, as well, without making the reference to Alien versus Predator. But yeah,
because it's like set in the woods or the jungle. Friday the 13th is set in the woods. And it's more of a bipedal species, so it connects more as a human.
What you're saying, what I'm hearing, is that Arnold Schwarzenegger is the sexiest final girl of all time.
Yes, Arnold. We love you, Arnold.
Oh.
Come on our podcast.
What other slasher films were there? Because you mentioned 1978 or 1984, so that would be from first Halloween to the first Nightmare on Elm Street. What about others?
I want to talk more about Canadian slashers because there's two particularly that come to mind.
Okay.
There's Black Christmas and My Bloody Valentine, which is, relevant because Valentine's Day is not long away.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Don't remind us.
Want a romantic film to watch on Valentine's Day? Watch that.
I watched it yesterday.
But did you actually?
Yeah, I watched some of it yesterday. Yeah.
What, the remake or the original?
The original. It's on Amazon Prime.
Oh right, I better watch it then. But which one do you want to talk about first then?
Dude, you take it away with your suggestion.
Let's go and My Bloody Valentine then. Yeah, underrated film, underappreciated film, I think as well.
It's a slasher, that one is.
Yeah.
It also it generally conforms to the tropes of the slasher, but it changes just enough things to be different. So we're not dealing with teenagers anymore. We're dealing with people in their 20s. It's more of an industrial setting, but you've still kind of got that weird conflation of sex and death in there because, you know, what you like the core tension of that film is this kind of weird love triangle that's in it.
Yeah, yeah. I like it as well because it's very unique and it separates itself a lot from the other slashers. Like a lot of slashers, a lot of people seem to mistake one film franchise from another. Like they seem to mistake them. Whereas with My Bloody Valentine, you know it's My Bloody Valentine because of how the film is told, well, story is told, what the characters are like, what the killers are like as well. You know, you've got this kind of minor figure instead, which is very different because miners were, I guess this is more of a thing over here, but miners were very well respected back then.
Yeah.
It's a dangerous profession.
More well respected. Yeah, they were much more well respected back then, which kind of throws the whole argument about their kind of outcast. Slasher villains are outcast. What do you think, Jeff?
I'd agree.
Have you seen the film?
No.
No.
Sorry.
God damn it, Jeff.
Jeff, you would love the first scene in My Bloody Valentine.
Okay.
The opening, you'd love it.
Okay. I don't know what I'd love, but okay.
Jeff, it's the right time to watch My Bloody Valentine. So.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Got a week to do it. Got a week to do it.
You've got no excuse.
Well, we're doing a podcast right now, so can't really do it at the moment.
I mean, if you're single on Valentine's Day or you're on a date, just watch it.
One or the other. Yeah. There's no in between, is there?
Chicks will dig it.
If you were going to go on a date, bun that. Stay at home alone, which you should be doing anyway.
Yeah.
Fucks. Should be doing that anyway. And watch My Bloody Valentine on Amazon Prime.
Not sponsored.
Okay? Not sponsored by Amazon Prime. We are sponsored by murderers.
Your hands are massive.
Fuck off.
Sorry, I just when you pointed, I just had to say it.
Yeah, I know my hands are big. So what?
No, it's like a fisheye lens, isn't it?
It's more hand finger to strangle you with.
You got a bit of a lens flare going on there.
Yeah, I've got JJ.
JJ Abrams is in the room.
I was going to critique Elliott's cinematography of his. I presume that's your phone.
It is my phone, yeah, but my computer doesn't work.
Oh no judgment. I mean, thank you for coming and all.
Yeah.
Come
on Valentine's Day.
Yeah. Black Christmas now. Christmas.
Which is the wrong time to be watching that.
Yes, because it has passed us.
Gonna have to wait another 10 months.
Yeah. Okay, so Black Christmas, a lot of people have argued was the first slasher film, which I've already said that sentence, but it has what's the word? It has the teenager trope, doesn't it? The pretty young woman trope, doesn't it? In it.
Yeah. The interesting thing about firstly, she's not a virgin, the final girl, and in fact, she actually talks about considering getting an abortion in the film, which is quite interesting for a horror film of the early 70s.
Yeah, way before the tropes were even like fully established. That's very interesting.
Yeah.
Was abortion legalized in Canada at the time?
I'm not sure about.
Okay. You said it was Canadian, yeah?
Yeah, it is Canadian because, well, Denim asked that last episode and I just had to have a look afterwards. It is Canadian.
I'm just going to look it up.
Canadian. Why? What were you looking for?
Just seeing if it was legalized or not in Canada, because I know Canada tends to be a bit ahead of places like America when it comes to legalizing things.
Yeah, they seem to be ahead of America in a lot of things recently.
Oh dear.
Okay, not to take a dig at Donald Trump supporters or anything like that.
Oh no, take a dig at them, please. Man, they get them all riled up. They'll say, "Oh, look at all these young kids chatting smack about us. Get our views up," and we'd be like, "Well, hey,
Yeah.
yeah."
You're from the 90s.
1969.
Old Jeff.
Pardon?
I'm a quarter of a century old, Jeff, you dizzy bitch.
Well, it's not my fault. It's not even your fault. You weren't there. 1969 is when it was legalized in Canada.
Yeah, the film came out in 1974. So yeah, there you go.
There you go.
There we go.
Sorry, just had to look it up because thought that was interesting. Like films, it's not just about times. It's also about where things are. Like a lot of films in America would be criticizing Reagan or criticizing Clinton. A lot of our films might be criticizing Thatcher or Blair. So being balanced now, taking shots at both sides of the aisle. Yeah.
So, what would Canadian slasher be taking a dig at then? Because if we look at Black Christmas, like if you look at the opening scene, in fact, that like where he's having that phone call, isn't he, with the women? Like he says some outrageous things at the time were, you know, a no-no in films. Have you seen that? Have you seen that scene?
No.
Have you guys seen that
What
scene?
did he say?
He just said stuff like, you know, what was it? I'm going to stab you in the cunt or something like that. Like,
Yeah,
okay.
the C word, something like that.
When was the first C word in film, or even F word while we're at it?
I'm not particularly sure, but that was, I think it was a very early time when that language was used. So in that way, it did push a lot of boundaries and a lot of what's the word?
Taboo?
Different elements, like as Elliott was saying with the abortion stuff and whatnot. Because I imagine, was abortions like a frowned upon back in? Was it frowned upon? I'm not sure. Back in the 70s.
Yeah, well, it depends on the group.
Yeah.
Because things can be legalized, but still be a bit iffy with people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, like people that, like you say in Canada, like, oh, they're still against marijuana being legalized, even though it's been legalized for years now. One of the first ones to do it.
And we're still not legalized over here in the UK.
Nah, wait, America might legalize it at the federal level this year.
Okay.
They might not. No.
So, going on to, so we've talked about slashers. What about post-slasher films? Because
the neo slashers.
Yeah.
What are those? If you could describe them, please.
The neo slashers were it's a reference to a whole bunch of more self-aware, self-referential slasher movies that started in the 90s, although I would say there were a couple of precursors in the 80s as well. There was Slumber Party Massacre, which was a more feminist take on the slasher genre. I think it's also one of the few slasher films from that time period to actually be directed by a woman as well. So that would be an early precursor to that. And then some of the more out there sequels to the big franchises, you know, films like Jason Lives, the sixth Friday the 13th movie, which was a little bit more aware of what it was. and maybe some of the Elm Street sequels as well. But when we think of the neo slasher, the first film that probably comes to mind is Scream.
Yeah, definitely Scream. It kind of parodies those tropes in a way as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, it turned the tropes into jokes on like a big, like on an audience consciousness level. It took the tropes that people had been aware of and finally turned it into a joke.
Yeah. Scream. I think Scream's awesome. By the way,
Scream's a perfect.
So good.
It's perfect.
It's so good. It manages to be scary, but also like parody the tropes. It's so clever how it does it.
And it's got like actual characters.
Yeah. Like, I think one of the most common criticisms about slashers is the characters. Like they just do nothing with the characters, which you could argue is so they can get killed off. But it's a welcome change in Scream that they have character development, stuff going on with the characters.
Yeah, I mean, there were definitely a whole bunch of great slashers from the 80s that do have good characters as well. Nancy from Elm Street is classic. But I think it's one of the few slasher films I can think of where every single character, like even the side characters, are still memorable.
Yeah, I think Wes Craven's pretty good at that, isn't he? Like, like having something there for the characters. Because obviously he did Nightmare on Elm Street and Scream, so yeah.
Yeah, Wes Craven was an absolute legend. The amount of stuff that he did with horror all the way throughout his career, starting from this exploitation scene with Last House on the Left and going into Hills Have Eyes, to then innovating the slasher with Nightmare on Elm Street, doing it again with something like New Nightmare, and then continuing with the Scream films.
Yeah. So, what do you think, Jeff? Have you seen Scream?
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna sound controversial here. I'm not a big fan of things that are more self-referential and sort of jokey, yet set within a diegetic universe. If it's trying to be breaking the fourth wall, then I can't. Most times I can't. Therefore, be terrified when this is happening. I don't feel that same urgency because I sort of feel it's a joke, and if that's my own personal taste. I'm not going to poo-poo anyone who doesn't, who does find joy in it, like you two do. Like, more power to you guys. Yeah.
Hashtag cancel. Jeff is over party.
Yeah, I can I can see where you're coming from with it, Jeff. Definitely with the Scream films, but I just think they're ingenious. I really do.
More power to you guys. I don't want to take it away from you, and I don't really have anything to add to the discussion. Sorry, because
and like also Scream like started this whole idea of horror films kind of being more self-aware, didn't it? Would you say?
Yeah, Wes Craven had already started dipping his toes into that with New Nightmare, which was the final Elm Street movie. Scream made that more explicit and I think more accessible to commercial audiences.
Yeah, definitely. Because for people that haven't seen New Nightmare, it takes place in the film in like a different universe to the film universe.
Where the actors who played the original characters are now, playing themselves.
Yeah. There's also in was it Scary Movie? Is it the first one? The opening scene was a parody of the opening scene in Scream, which is odd because it's like a parody of a parody. Things getting referenced it just brings up that new level of when does parody, or when does something go beyond parody? Which Scream definitely transcends being just a parody. But it's just something odd I found.
Yeah, it's a weird line to walk when you are trying to create a parody of something that is already self-aware.
Yeah. What's your opinion on the first Scary Movie? Like, we obviously know the sequels aren't great, well, unless you do like the sequels.
I haven't seen any of them.
Oh, you haven't seen any of them? Okay.
Did that all?
I like the first one. The first one was okay. I thought it did what it set out to do. But so where does Ghostface fit into this then when it comes to slasher villains? Is he iconic?
In appearance, yeah. But it doesn't fit into that deformed outsider, that deformed other, does he?
No. And he's a bit more smarter, isn't he, than the other slasher villains, would you say?
He's also several different people.
Yeah, that is another
the
factor as well.
Where you've got two Ghostface killers in almost every film.
Yeah.
It's the aesthetic of Ghostface that is, the iconography, the iconic part, and then the actual people behind the mask are each a different type of killer in their own right, each different psychologically, which makes all these sequels interesting.
Yeah. It's kind of like Batman, isn't it? In a way, it's a symbol more than a person.
Yeah.
Because, like, as they say in the film, Batman doesn't necessarily have to be a person; he's a symbol, and that you could argue that's the same with Ghostface.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, keeping on parody of the slasher genre, Cabin in the Woods comes to mind.
Yeah, so my thing with Cabin in the Woods is it's an excellent film for a start.
Yeah.
The Woods. I think that for me, Cabin in the Woods is a deconstruction of the horror genre as a whole rather than any of the specific subgenres, but definitely there are tropes from slashers and from cosmic horror and from monster movies that it all references.
Yeah, like the virgin part, like the woman has to be a virgin. That was in the film, wasn't it? Yeah. And obviously all the characters are like dumb teenagers as well.
There's also the scene where the young couple is getting it on and they die afterwards.
Yeah. It's a very interesting film. I found the ending a bit hilarious. Like the whole world just suddenly like dies because it didn't follow the tropes of horror. Spoiler, by the way.
Yeah, spoiler for a film that's been out for nearly 10 years.
Yeah. What so talking about more modern day, well, the slasher genre isn't as well established now as it was back in the 80s and 70s, but stuff like Happy Death Day, does that kind of fit into that genre? Has anybody seen it?
Yeah, Happy Death Day is good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there are three categories of slasher films of the last 20 years. You've had the continuation of the more self-aware films. So that would be, Happy Death Day, Behind the Mask, Rise of Leslie Vernon, and a film like that Final Girls that came out a few years ago. There's also been all the reboots and reimaginings of the past slasher films, and pretty much every single all the major players have been remade in some way, and some of the more cult films have been too. And then you've had like a handful of original slasher films like Hatchet, Wolf Creek, and some of the stuff that's come out of France with films like Inside, which I would recommend if you're doing low budget horror filmmaking, you should be watching Inside.
Yeah. Hatchet has Kane Hodder as well, one of the actors who plays Jason Voorhees.
Yeah.
That's right, yeah. Yeah. With Happy Death Day, I think it's where you really start to like see them experimenting with slasher. Like the whole mixing Groundhog Day with slasher in a way, I guess. It's a fresh take on things for sure.
Yeah, Happy Death Day was really good, and I like the sequel as well. The sequel was a lot of fun.
Yeah, they're really fun films, and if you're a fan of slasher and you've not seen them, it may be a good idea to watch them because they're a lot of fun to watch, and especially if you're a slasher fan.
Yeah, actually, if you like big fun films from the 80s, like if you like Back to the Future and all that kind of stuff, I think you'll love the second one in particular.
Yeah, definitely. Don't Breathe as well. Like, I know that's more of a thriller, but does that have elements of slasher in it?
It's been a while since I've seen Don't Breathe. I don't remember it too well.
Yeah, it's got... So, the plot... Have you seen the film, Jeff?
No. Sorry.
Don't Breathe. Have you heard of it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's got Stephen Lang in it, and he's this blind man. Then these teenagers try to like rob his house, but they didn't realize that the blind man was also a psychopath. And there isn't particularly a high body count in it, is there really? There's only like, I think he only kills like 2 or 3 people, doesn't he? Something like that. But I suppose you could argue it has some elements of slasher in it, even though it's more of a thriller kind of thing. It has... I'm not sure. The blind man in the film kind of has some characteristics of a slasher. Like a lot of the time he walks around, kind of like same way, Michael or Jason kind of walks. Yeah, and Stephen Lang's really great in that film as well. Like, he should do more films. I don't know why he doesn't do more films. I think he's more of a theatre actor, isn't he?
He could be.
Yeah, I think he is.
He's in Avatar.
Yeah, he's in Avatar.
A lot of actors in these classic slasher films started out in theatre. They were theatre kids in Friday the 13th and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. It's also worth mentioning as well, slashers created a lot of stars we see today in films.
Yeah. And not just actors, but also writers and directors that we now know and love got their start in slasher. Frank Darabont was one of the screenwriters on Dream Warriors, and he went on to direct Shawshank Redemption.
Oh right, yeah, absolutely. You've got Kevin Bacon. He was the star. Well, he wasn't the star, but he was one of the kids that got killed off in Friday the 13th, the original, and he's now an icon in films with films like Tremors.
Yeah.
Can't forget Johnny Depp.
Johnny Depp, Nightmare on Elm Street. Everybody knows who Johnny Depp is now. Maybe for the wrong reasons now, considering what he's going through. Which, God bless him, I hope he gets through.
Yeah, hopefully the time's going to turn on that situation. It's a very difficult position to be in.
Yeah, I found it. I don't know if you guys agree with me, but I found it like disrespectful that they took him off a Fantastic Beast.
Yeah.
I don't want to. Got to be careful what I say. There's probably some sort of conflict of interest with who knows who and all this kind of stuff, that all sorts of like politics that we're not aware of.
Yeah, there is that. But yeah, I mean, I don't want to get too much into Johnny Depp allegations or Amber Heard for that matter, because she recently came out with more allegations against Marilyn Manson, didn't she?
No, that was Evan Rachel Wood.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Okay. My mistake then.
There are also allegations against Shia LaBeouf.
Yeah, Shia LaBeouf say, I don't know, he's meant to be a crazy human being, apparently. There was that incident with the paper bag on the head, wasn't there?
No one was hurt in that, though, were they?
No.
No. What I heard from, I don't want to go too much into like the drama or anything like that, but I heard a few years back when he was doing that somebody had assaulted him, and I think that was the story that came from that.
Okay.
But yeah, I don't want to go too into like celeb gossip, and especially with such tricky accusations that are being leveled around.
Yeah.
Working our way back. Final Destination. Does that class as neo slasher?
Some people would probably put it in there, but again, there's no human element to the killer. Like it is exclusively an unseen, but it's like its death itself is the killer. So I don't know. I've seen some other people put it in with torture porn instead.
So
maybe
would you
it
say
is.
Saw? Is that slasher?
No.
No, I don't put films like Saw and Hostel in with slashers. To be perfectly honest, I think it is a separate thing, and the whole thing with those films is that they appear to be some kind of response to 9/11 and the war on terror, particularly the controversy surrounding the torture methods that came to light during the war on terror.
Yeah. So the neo slasher, so it starts from around the 90s. Are we still in the neo slasher now, or are we in the neo slasher?
I tell you, I think we're seeing a continuation of the neo slasher with films like Final Girls and Happy Death Day and Behind the Mask. One film that we forgot to mention was quite interesting. It came out in the year 2000. It's called Cherry Falls. And the whole conceit of that film is that the teenagers find out that the killer is killing virgins. So they are scrambling to, do the thing so not to be killed.
Okay. So again, tying into self-awareness / parody?
Yeah, Cherry Falls is one of the lesser known like neo slasher films, I think. Seems to have fallen like out of favor compared to like everyone talks about Scream and I Know What You Did Last Summer and some of those other films around that time. No one really seems to mention Cherry Falls anymore. It's kind of faded into a little bit.
Okay. What about
also Cherry Falls, which is very subtle.
What's that, sorry?
Also, it's called Cherry Falls, which is very subtle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Halloween, recent Halloween, and maybe by extension Halloween Kills, would they be neo slasher?
No, I think they're just hardline slasher movies.
Okay, so it's not dependent on like the time it was made, but more the lineage of things.
I think it's got more to do with the the thing that sets the neo slashers apart is the open self-awareness and self-referential nature of of what makes these films in the first place. And Halloween, the new Halloween, is essentially, while it may have an understanding of its own legacy, I don't think that it is narratively self-aware enough to be considered a neo slasher rather than a hardline slasher movie.
Right.
So should there be another sort of subgenre to separate them or not?
Not really. I mean, you have the slashers and you have the neo slashers, and both can coexist at the same time. It's again, it goes back to that matter of the self-referential nature. Like, is that embedded in the narrative of the film? Is that embedded in the actual characters? And it's not just a general sense that the film understands where it came from in terms of its lineage. Like, the new Halloween absolutely understands what came before it, and perhaps it references that to some point. But how much of that is us projecting that onto the film?
Yeah.
So you've got a quiz for us, Jeff, haven't you?
I do. I've got 9 questions, so one of you is going to win.
Hang on.
Oh.
I can see myself doing terrible on here.
I'm going to do... I've only read like fingers on buzzers. First one to shout out the answer gets it. If it's a number, it will be whoever is closest to the number gets the point. And yeah, some of them are easy, some of them aren't. So, quiz.
Sorry, guys, we cut out then. We cut out. We had technical difficulties, and we are now.
Are we ready, ladies and gentlemen? Hold on to your knickers. Question 1. Sorry. Question 1. How many acting credits, according to IMDb, does Christopher Plummer have?
91.
What's your answer, Elliott?
107.
The correct answer is 217.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Not even close. So Elliott wins that one.
How many kills by Michael Myers are there in the original Halloween film?
Oh. It's been a while since I've seen it, so
7 or 8. 7 or 8.
Please pick one.
No.
I'll go 9 just to be different.
All right, which one are you picking, Elliott? I need you to pick one singular number.
But are you including the first kill?
Everyone done by Michael Myers, so that would be yes.
Okay.
I'm going with 8 because there was a kill off screen. I don't know if that counts.
Correct answer is 5.
Yikes.
So, Elliott, you get the point on that one.
Oh yeah, there were 5. Yeah.
How many Friday the 13th films have Jason Voorhees in?
Okay, that's all but the first and 5th films. Are we including Freddy versus Jason?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay, 2, 3, 4, 6, 8, 9. Freddy versus Jason, Jason X, and the remake, I presume, as well.
Not counting those.
Not counting the remake. So 10.
No, we are counting the remake.
Okay, then 11.
Sorry, I'm getting confused with my own question. What's your guess, Hayden?
Jeff's having to find out 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. There's 12, isn't there? 12.
Oh, the correct answer is 11.
Oh, wait, you weren't counting Freddy versus Jason, were you?
We were, but Jason was in the first film. Even though he wasn't the killer, he still made an appearance.
Trick question.
So...
Trick question.
Yeah, it had to be difficult.
God damn it, Jeff.
Can't give it to either of you. Do I give it to
You're sending me all these trick questions all the time, Jeff. On Facebook.
Oh yeah. That's a draw. Do I give you both a point or neither?
Give us a point.
Okay.
Give us both a point. I want a point. I've not had a point yet.
There you go. Number 4. When did Christopher Plummer get his first Oscar?
I'm not sure.
No idea. No idea about Oscars.
Whoever's closest wins.
1980.
1962.
2010. So Hayden gets this.
Ooh.
Oh,
Ooh.
Oh.
Another point. Even though I was nowhere near.
Who directed the original Nightmare on Elm Street?
yeah, Wes Craven.
Wes Craven, obviously.
Oh, yeah. Well, Elliott gets that. How many Texas Chainsaw Massacre films are there?
Are we including remakes? There's 8.
What's your answer?
Yeah, I would say 8. Well, I'm going to say the same answer anyway. 8.
Okay, I'm going to have to give it to Elliott on this because he got there first.
Yep.
But no, both correct. Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the original. During the script phase, it was originally under what name?
No idea.
No, I'm not sure about this one. The Oklahoma Massacre.
No, no. It was called...
The Derby.
The Derby what?
Pro Randell Experience.
It's called Head Cheese.
Oh, I recognise that.
Head cheese of all things. That's...
How do they go from that's Texas Chainsaw Massacre?
I'm glad they didn't go with that because head cheese is just like, yeah.
Sounds like something you do in your spare time.
What is the running time of Psycho?
$100.
Yeah, 1 hour 40, so that would be 100 minutes. So Alex probably going to win.
Oh no, it's whoever's closest. So
I'm going to go 105 just to see what happens.
109. So Hayden gets
this.
Oh. And the final question is, what was the budget of the original Paranormal Activity?
I believe it was pretty low.
Was it $7,000?
I think it was 12 grand.
Are you talking dollars?
Yeah, in dollars, yeah.
Dollars,
I think it was 12 grand.
15, so Hayden gets this
Ooh.
point.
Woohoo!
Now, scores are as follows. Hayden, 4 points. Elliott, 5.
Interesting.
Oh.
Difficult to see who won that one.
Oh. Imagine if one of the questions wasn't a draw.
Well, you both drew on the Friday the 13th. How many have Jason Voorhees? But both of you... Sorry, I'm confusing myself. Yeah. That was what happened. Yeah, you both you didn't get head cheese.
No one should get head cheese ever, whatever that is. I misinterpreted the Jason question because I thought you said how many is he the killer in, which is 11.
Yeah. Because Yeah, the fifth didn't have. It's like the third Halloween film didn't have.
Is a copycat killer in the fifth film, yeah.
Mm. But
Ah,
in the third Halloween
yeah.
film, it has nothing to do with him. Thank you for watching. This is Elliott. Elliott, do you want to plug anything? Your own podcast?
I'd like to plug Dua Lipa.
Stop
yeah.
it. You've been good so far. Don't ruin it now.
Can't help it. Right, no. I do have a podcast, but it's not live yet.
Okay. Do you know when it will be live? Where people will be able to... Oh, no. Okay.
No
Well, next time you're on, if you wish to come on, if you're not sick of the sight of us, and if it's on there, you can plug it in. But in the meantime, okay, we're just going to have to do with you teasing us.
Yeah, I'm a tease.
Oh, dear. Well...
Which is why I would die in the Massacre film.
Yeah. Well, on that note, thank you, Elliott, for joining us. Hayden White and myself, Fine Cut Podcast signing off.